Greetings from Tokyo, my dear friends. This is Daisuke, and I very much hope that this video finds you well and in very good spirits wherever you are in the world. And today I'd like to continue on with the video a day series, I suppose we can call it, on this YouTube channel, wherein I talk about a film or a TV series, as the case may be, that in one way or another, in my view, has something to do with the spirit of the season that we find ourselves in at the moment. October 2020, 'tis the season, 'tis the Halloween season. So today I'd like to focus my thoughts on another horror film. This is from 1974. This is from the mind and imagination of filmmaker Bob Clark. This is a film that is so scary, and it's one of those films that absolutely terrified me. It terrified me when I was young, it terrified me growing up, and it terrifies me right now. It's this film, Black Christmas, from 1974. This is a film that is, I think, in many ways part of that generation of films in the 1970s in the English language that could be described as being, in many senses of the term, game-changing movies. This is a game changer of a film because I think it is doing so much with what is seemingly a more or less seemingly simple concept, which is the idea of a stalker, a killer in the house, and what will happen when these young women or these characters are confronted with certain situations in this house or in the environment. And the creepiness and suspense is just through the roof when you're talking about a watch of this film, Black Christmas. What is so remarkable about this film? Well, there are many remarkable things about this, but one of the things that I always find incredibly effective about this film is the way that it uses the POV, the point of view shots, and the way that it uses somewhat extreme lenses for some of its shots. This gives off a very eerie quality that is further augmented and heightened by the sounds that are very aggressive, almost animalistic, and quite guttural and very chilling and frightening. This is also combined with the way that this film uses very seemingly simple, down-to-earth elements as part of its decor, its mise-en-scène, and its style. It's essentially a story about it's a sorority house, but it's essentially a house. So you have a sort of a story about some kind of intruder in the house. So, and you have telephone calls, and you have these kind of stalker type of vibes going on as well. And so all of these things that we have in this film, included in this film, I think are elements that are immediately identifiable. In other words, I think I, for one, have been in situations where I'm in my home and suddenly there are no lights in the corridor in the distance. And so I admit that there are moments where I feel a little bit of a shiver down the spine. Perhaps there is someone or something lurking in the darkness. I don't know. I go and rush and turn on the light. It's that kind of almost primordial, basic, elemental feeling of shock and the unknown and the scary that is played with so effectively and in a way that also gives us a sense of the accessible in the film. And I think a film that is effective is one that is accessible and one that the audience can access and can easily understand and thus sympathize with, because once the audience's sympathies are injected into the film, once that happens, then really the sky's the limit in terms of how to apply the scares and the chills and the jumps that occur. And believe me, there are plenty of those in this film. This film also, I think, is a very tasteful horror film, in that, of course, it's a horror film and there are really a lot of quite unpleasant moments. And so I think, of course, certainly this film isn't for everyone, as it shouldn't be, because no film is for everyone. And if you are someone who doesn't like scary, very scary films, then this film is certainly not for you. However, there are moments that do pop out that are incredibly effective, and it's amazing to see the screen and exactly what is actually shown on screen versus what kind of fear factor, imaginative power the film has. In other words, what we see on screen is very effective, don't get me wrong, but of course it stimulates the mind of the viewer such that what we imagine happening becomes really, really chilling and bone-chilling and incredibly disturbing. So I think, therefore, the way in which the film metes out its horror quotient, I think, is done very tastefully, very artistically, and thus very effectively, such as to make this film timeless in how it essentially creates its effect on the minds and the hearts of the viewers, including yours truly. So this is the film Black Christmas. I must say also that, as I mentioned before, there are many ways in which the cinematic qualities, I think, are really they shine quite marvelously. I mentioned the use of certain lenses for certain shots, the sounds, the screams, if you will. I like that aspect because, as I say, there's something very elemental and fundamental about the idea of a scream. You know what I mean? And screams, as they are portrayed in cinema, there's something about the screams of these characters in this film that is so elemental and fundamentally chilling to the core. I'm not quite sure if I'm describing it well enough, but it's something like what we are dealing with here are almost it's like we are seeing played out so brilliantly the building blocks of effective cinema and the building blocks of effective chilling horror cinema of the 1970s. And that is the reason why I think, or one of the reasons why I think this film is indeed one of the great game changer films from the 1970s, especially in the context of the horror genre, but also in the context of the thriller suspense genre, because, as I say, the thriller and suspense quotient of this film is just skyrocketed through the roof. All thrusters on with this. So the film Black Christmas is a horror film suspense chiller classic. And I should say also that there are some very effective, iconic set pieces. There are some very vivid and unforgettable horror iconic images from this film that will stay with you, I would dare say, forever, if that's not the case already for those who've seen it. And for those who have seen it, you probably know the scenes that I'm referring to and the images that I'm referring to. And if you look at those images and how they are composed, you can probably guess that they are composed in a very pretty straightforward and simple way. But simple is here not a derogatory term. I use simple here to suggest that we are dealing with, as I say, elements of cinema that are put together in the most effective and highly, outstandingly productive way to give us moments of the whole, and the whole itself is a shocker of a film. And the way it creeps in to one's mind and one's feelings as one is watching it is also extraordinary. There is this unsettling disquiet about the film and the way it starts. And it seems like it starts, but it's one of those things where it feels like there is a mood and a creepiness to the film, but there's also a quick pace to it, because it's like things are happening while you don't think they're happening. Or you're watching the film and you think the film's narrative pace is going in one way, but then you realize that it's going in a completely different way, and it has been for the duration of the proceedings. And so with that kind of unease and disruption of one's equilibrium as a film viewer, I think that's another reason why this film, Black Christmas, holds the power that it does, and it continues to hold such power through the years. As I say, this is from 1974, but now we are in 2020, and this film is still really unsettling. And I think that's a mark of an effective film, it's a mark of an effective chiller, and it's a mark of an effective work of art that we find from the 1970s cinema. This is the great chiller classic, one of the best, one of the great game changers of all time, I would dare say. Bob Clark's film, Black Christmas. Okay, my friends, so that's it for now. And so until we meet again, please be happy and healthy and well, and please keep on watching a lot of great, great movies. Thank you once again for your time, as always, my dear, dear friends, and cheers.